Ladies, gentlemen, Bat family out there, I'm excited for this video. So similar to a recent DCU video I made, I asked you guys, what are the top things you absolutely, and I mean absolutely, need to see in the Batman Part 2. So obviously in this video, I'm going to go over your top wants, desires, and needs, give my take on what you guys have to say, see if what you've said is something I can realistically see not only being in the movie, but if it's something I really want to see myself. But to be honest, if anything, I'm really looking forward to see what you guys have to say down in the comments about everybody's top wants. And I really am stressing that. I know I keep saying it, but if you think of the Batman Part 2, what is it that you want to see? So let's talk about that. But before we begin, a quick word from this video's sponsor, FanHome. So as you guys know on this channel, you might not see sponsors very often. I accept them very few and far between. But FanHome sent me the first 2 issues of their Build the Batmobile series, in where you collect parts every month and assemble them yourself following the instructions in the magazines that you get. So the finished model is a detailed 71.4 centimeter replica of the Batmobile from the 1966 classic TV series. I'm sure, I mean, on this channel, everyone is aware of what that looks like. Now, as you can see here from me putting it together from the first 2 issues, it's really simple and easy to do, with the model usually consisting of pieces just clicking together or screwing parts in. Now, each piece you're fitting together feels really premium, and it's even made from die-cast metal and other high-quality materials. So for now, it's just these first 2 issues that I've completed, but along the journey, you'll eventually reach the gorgeous final model, which as you can see is really, really detailed. It's got working lights that you can put in, the bat scope, a nicely detailed dashboard here. Each issue contains not only the building instructions, obviously, for that issue's assembly, but you get a lot of additional Batman content to read with each and every magazine. Covering the classic TV show, you get a deep dive into great Batman comics to read, Batman year by year, just detailing the Caped Crusader's journey throughout time. And again, FanHome are the people behind this, and they're all about creating collectibles that are authentic to the franchises they're from. And the thing is, guys, I actually subscribed myself many years ago, way back in 2015, to their Build the Millennium Falcon series, which they actually still have available. So this is almost 10 years ago, and I actually, on a previous YouTube channel, made a little video series of me putting those parts together whenever I got the new issue and whatnot. So that's a little Boba Easter egg, so I can for sure attest to how fun this is and how delighted I was when they reached out to me for the Build the Batmobile series. As your subscription unfolds, you also get exclusive Batman gifts such as this classic Batman hat, shirt, and more. So if you guys want to start collecting and building your very own classic Batmobile, click on the link in the description box of this video, which will take you right to fanhome.com's Batmobile page, and use my personal code on screen, which also just really helps support the channel. Alright, so diving into the first one, the first big need for the Batman Part 2, from DJF8550 saying, if it ever gets made. You had to go there, didn't you, man? You had to go there, didn't you? But no, really, from Brutal Vengeance here for his top want, top need. For me, I really need to see more of Alfred in the sequel. I loved Andy Serkis's Alfred so much, and I desperately wanted more of him in the first film. Obviously, the first film was mainly focused on Batman's character, but I want Part 2 to be focused on Bruce's and Alfred's relationship together and how that bonding is. And I agree that this is a top need, not only from you, but from me as well. And it seems other people. We got Vinny7305 here saying more missions with Alfred as the man in the chair. Now, I absolutely agree with the second installment, the Batman Part 2. I think we understand, like, people have their feedback with Part 1, but I think the reason why there was a lack of Alfred, of course, of which we all understand by this point, is because his and Bruce's relationship was fairly strained, even though Alfred would pop down into the Batcave and actually help out, obviously, with the Cypher and whatnot. But now with their relationship being closer than ever, arguably. I mean, I don't know how close Bruce and Alfred were when Thomas and Martha were alive when he was a boy, but yeah, I'm pretty confident that in this iteration, with them holding hands in the hospital, this could be the very closest they've ever been. So what I'm trying to get to is, of course, in the second movie, I wouldn't say it's too much of an assumption to suggest that we will get more Alfred as a result of them growing closer in the first film. Obviously, with Bruce's just development in the first movie anyway. And also, I think Matt Reeves would probably want to include more Alfred Pennyworth himself as well. And also just with what Vinny said there, more missions with Alfred as the man in the chair. I think that would be really cool. I've mentioned this before myself. I would love to see Alfred communicate with Bruce as he's out there on a mission. Kind of what we've seen with Jeremy Irons as Alfred, or I guess we've seen it in quite a few, but with the Batman, I would love to see him aid Bruce, not only in the investigation like he did in the first movie, but maybe over the communications. We saw Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne, I guess, speak to Gordon over the communicator he had on his wrist or his glove or whatever it was. But yeah, I need some more Alfred in there. I know people have said, what about some training scenes to kind of hammer down how Alfred said that when the Waynes died, he did what he could. He taught him how to fight. Maybe they can show some of those sparring sessions like what they did when Bruce was a teenager, but in present day. But 1000%, this is a need for the Batman Part 2. More freaking Alfred. And if you have anything to expand on that, and it's also one of your top wants, let me know down in the comments below. Okay, so the next top want and need is from Bat Strikes Back, and oh god, he went there. I need to see Robin, specifically Dick Grayson. I don't expect to see him become Robin in this movie, but I have a feeling he'll be introduced and we get to see him trained throughout. Their dynamic is just too iconic to not include him once again. I personally wouldn't call this a need from me, but I absolutely identify what is it that fans want to see most of all in the Batman Part 2. I think that what Bat Strikes Back said here does reflect a lot of wants and needs from the overall fandom of Matt Reeves' trilogy. Now, you may say to me in the comments, well, Boba, I mean, it's not on my top wants and needs. I don't know if a Robin, or I don't think a Robin should be in the trilogy. Fair enough. But from my observations of, you know, covering the Batman for a long time, people, I mean, it's one of the most clickbaitiest things to do out there is to tease Robin, right? Or for scoopers out there to say, oh, you know, I've heard Dick Grayson's going to be in the second movie. Oh my god. And then everyone's like, oh my god, Timothy Chalamet's going to be Robin and all of that stuff. However, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be like, if Matt Reeves did it, I trust his judgment. And also, I am damn interested to see how he would adapt Robin, Dick Grayson. Now, I have said myself that if this was to be done, so let's just say I had some weird divine, insight into the future and I had a vision, I would like to say, in my hopes, that it would be done in a way where he's only teased, kind of as Bat Strikes Back says here, like, not necessarily expecting to see him become Robin in the second movie, or while Bat Strikes Back says here that maybe he should be trained throughout, my preference would be to see him only at the end. Like, maybe he could be teased, like, at some point in the middle, or somewhere like that, if by the end of the movie, for whatever reason, Bruce attends the Flying Graysons. And what I mean by the tease is that I guess you could have posters throughout the beginning, middle of the plot or something, and then, I don't know, it fades to black at the end with something like the rope snapping and Dick Grayson's parents dying. So that way it sets up, and then a lot of fans would know what that means. Maybe some general audience members might not know exactly what that means, but you kind of get that stare that Bruce had with the mayor's kid when he was just looking at him, seeing himself when he lost his parents, or how he did that again in the cathedral, but this time he's in the stalls of the Flying Grayson circus, and he's just looking at Dick Grayson, just kind of reliving and imagining and knowing what that kid is going through. And then boom, the Batman Part 2 ends, and it basically sets up Part 3, knowing that probably Bruce is going to take that kid on. I admit, I'm not saying that's the best way of doing it, but I think that's a good way of doing it, because I think the second movie needs to focus on the psychological development of Bruce in other ways, and I'm not neglecting Robin there, because I know a lot of people like to bring up the whole Dark Victory thing, or like how, oh yeah, you know, Bruce Wayne in year 3 does take on Dick Grayson, and I do think that Matt Reeves could actually have an interest in terms of, all while his movie, or movies, but movie as of right now, doesn't lean so much into the fantastical. He said that the one fantastical aspect of it is, of course, course, Batman himself. And what he means by that is the idea of actually somebody dressing up in a Batsuit and going out there, or while it's not fantastical in the sense of a clay blob monster, it still falls under the word of fantastical because it's not so grounded in our reality, right? And I think he would say the same thing about taking on a child to be trained as a vigilante, to go up against people with knives and guns. When you bring it into the sheen of the screen, the silver screen, especially Matt Reeves' version of Batman, which is so visceral, it would make it almost disturbing that Bruce Wayne would do that. But I think Matt Reeves would like the challenge of presenting not only the psychology of what it looks like with Bruce taking on a child and training him in the ways of fighting crime, and, you know, again, in the visceral lens that Matt Reeves has with Greg Fraser's cinematography and this kind of grounded reality, that would look to some people in his lens, I think, like the argument of weaponizing a child, even though us Batman fans know that it's not like that. But in some adaptations, even Titans, they took that argument, and I think it's a relevant argument to be made with Ian Glenn's Bruce. Now, I know some people are going to be like, wait, why are you bringing up Titans? I think it is a very fascinating avenue to look at, and I think when you bring it to the literal reality of the real world, for example, I think Nolan's Batman would be an argument to be made here, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt wasn't a kid. So this is what I'm trying to argue here. I think Matt Reeves would be pretty damn interested in the challenge of, oh wait, we're not going to bring in some guy like Joseph Gordon-Levitt to be Robin. What if, okay, we don't make him 9 years old, but what about a 16-year-old playing, let's just say, a 13, 14-year-old Dick Grayson? How would that look? How can we translate that to audiences? Would that work? And what would the psychological perspective be? Maybe Reeves would do it in such a way where Bruce, from Bruce's Batman's perspective, would be helping the kid. But Alfred, for example, might be the kind of narration of looking at this situation and maybe not condoning it and saying, Bruce, this isn't, are you sure about this? This maybe isn't right. So that is the big challenge, I think, about if you take the fan goggles off of like seeing Robert Pattinson's Batman, how cool he looks, and then being like, oh my God, a Robin would be so cool as well, wouldn't it? You kind of remind yourself of, wait, what would that actually look like in terms of optics? That's the thing about Batman and Robin that works so easily in comics, video games, and whatnot. You kind of suspend your disbelief of the real-world nature of what that would mean. But when you bring it into live action, that's why traditionally Robins and Batgirls have been a bit older. So yeah, I'm not against it. I wouldn't say it's my top need, but if he did it, absolutely, I would be so game. So we're gonna have to watch this space. So let me know if you need to see that, or if you're kind of like so-so, like me. It's like, if it happens, okay. But if it doesn't happen, okay. Up next, for the top wants and needs for the Batman Part 2, from Mark Rawlinson 2770, Harvey Dent. But we also have many other people saying it, so such as C4 Nightwalker. I loved how the first movie focused on Batman, but we need to see more of Bruce Wayne. Perhaps we could see that by introducing Harvey Dent as a friend and as a new district attorney. I do expect to see Harvey at some point in time, whether that's saved for Part 3, because, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, but if he brings in Harvey Dent as the district attorney for Part 2, won't that just be like Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight from Christopher Nolan? But I think people really want and need this one for multiple reasons. Gotham, by the end of the first movie, as Bella Real is standing now after the flooding, is talking about restoring the faith in our institutions. I mean, we've literally not got a frickin' commissioner anymore. We've not got a DA. You know, we got a gap for the DA, Harvey Dent maybe coming in. And I feel like one of the key things is that having a district attorney who doesn't take payoffs to not prosecute certain crimes will be instrumental in helping the rehabilitation of Gotham, if you will, as becoming less of a cesspool of a city, as Riddler put it. Of course, that starts with having a mayor who is doing non-corrupt mayor things, a DA who is actually bringing justice to the city in a legal aspect, and that is so critical to this criminological experiment that, yes, Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is on, because he's out there to serve his own form of justice, because this city doesn't offer much justice. Now, if you bring in Harvey Dent in the sequel, that is so helpful with there. And then you bring in a new commissioner, whether that's Jim or not, or if Jim's going to get it eventually, that will be instrumental as well. So you can really start to see where the end of the first film left off, all while we can't be led with so much conviction of where Part 2 is exactly going to go. there is definitely teasers there. There's little drip-fed things of where we can definitely build upon that. But it all starts to paint this bigger picture of how in that second movie, there will be probably this theme of identity and naturally what many people are assuming, the more introspective, somewhat exploration of Bruce Wayne. And a lot of people say Harvey Dent as well, because if the second movie's assumed theme is more identity here, I mean, it might have a couple of themes, of course, but there's duality with Harvey Dent, isn't there? There's Harvey Dent, and then there's Big Bad Harv, Two-Face. The thing is, do you want to see him become Harvey Dent in the not Harvey Dent, Two-Face in a second movie? I would say no, believe it or not. That's the thing. I wouldn't be against it. But yeah, without rehashing kind of the Dark Knight here, even if Matt Reeves gave it his own take with Harvey becoming Two-Face in the second movie, I would say I would rather see Harvey work with Bella Real, maybe Bella Real bringing out Bruce Wayne's philanthropist mode a little bit more, and that way they become friends. They're helping restore Gotham's institutions and the faith in Gotham, which is why, you know, the next screenshot I have as a top one is from KBFL1ED saying, if I had to pick something I need, it would be a clear progression of the Bruce Wayne persona. I want Bruce to realize how much good his money and social status can achieve for the city. Exactly. I do feel like people are confident in this idea because it really does all marry together very, very well. Even with Bella Real, and as I was just briefly teasing before reading out this latest want and need, you know, said to Bruce Wayne in the cathedral scene, there's so much more he could be doing for the city, like his parents, but he doesn't seem to be doing anything. Now, obviously, that was a play on how ironic is that to say, because he goes out every night putting his life in danger to help the city. But yes, one thing he is absolutely lacking awareness in is how much he can do as Bruce Wayne. Now, I do think we will get a tease of that in the Penguin with him, like Wayne Enterprises helping rebuild the city on top of like what the government is doing. He still might be reluctant, by the way. I don't think people should expect Playboy or like a sudden 180 in the way Robert Pattinson plays Bruce Wayne. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a haircut. So from going from that long hair to maybe what Pattinson's usual hair is, you know, maybe short back and sides, maybe a bit of a fringe. I guess what I'm trying to say is that he can present himself as developing as Bruce Wayne without going, you know, full Playboy mode. He can kind of be how he was in public before, but just still making the effort to go out more. Now, going back to how Harvey Dent could come into this is the thing. I think it would be good to explore the duality of Harvey and even see moments of where that other personality comes out, and you don't have to reveal Two-Face, I think, until maybe even the third film. I think leaving that long room of development, going even into part 3, could make it more impactful that a character we loved and a character who helped rebuild Gotham alongside Bella Real, and on top of obviously what Batman is doing, but alongside Bruce's public appearances in the second movie, will be more devastating, and devastating for the character of Bruce Wayne and Batman, and harder to reconcile with when maybe he's going up against him or whatever it might be in part 3 versus just kind of introducing that character and then, you know, doing that thing and finishing it by the end of the second movie. I mean, I don't think he would die or anything. He would be put in Arkham. I don't think Matt Reeves is in the interest of, you know, just introducing characters, making them villains, and then killing them off in the same movie. I'm not a big fan of that. Without rambling about this one forever, I think this is a huge want that I understand from, from a lot of people when it comes to Harvey Dent in the sequel. And as for Bruce Wayne, with what KB said here, yeah, I think it needs to be, it would almost be absolutely shocking to me if they didn't lean on Bruce realizing what his money can do. But the thing is, as KB said, I want Bruce to realize how much good his money and social status can achieve for the city. Well, the thing is, his social status could be in question for the sequel, which might even encourage this a little bit more. Not only like helping Gotham, maybe after Bella Real's conversation, maybe Bruce realizing that people need somebody out there, they need hope. Not only Batman, but maybe he's going to try and bring that out and realize himself that I could maybe be doing more as Bruce. But something else that might push him out the door there is that the Wayne name could be a little bit in shambles or questioned by the citizens of Gotham. Now, he's still so popular, so there's absolutely no way that I feel like I couldn't believe that his name wouldn't be questioned after what the Riddler presented to the city and how Thomas Wayne was in cahoots, if you will, with Falcone. Now, as we know, and I've said this a few times before, and as Alfred eventually revealed to Bruce, it's not as simple as it seems. He went to Falcone to kind of scare Edward Elliot, but he didn't expect for him to be killed. But again, the only thing you need to take out of this is that God knows what the population of Gotham is, but everyone basically saw that. It was on the news. It was everywhere. They believe that the Waynes are dirty, and maybe the son is just like the father. I mean, think how quick the internet these days reacts to a headline, whether it's true or not. A lot of people are like guilty before innocent. Yeah, Bruce might need to literally go out there and restore the optics of the Wayne name. So I think there will be all kinds of reason for the development of the Bruce Wayne persona, and how Harvey can get involved in that and everything. It's all, as I said, like the jigsaw puzzles, in where we can't assume too much, but it does seem like there's a few crumbs that we can follow the trail of when it comes to certain aspects of the Batman Part 2. And I absolutely agree that, you know, this is in the want/need territory when it comes to Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne himself being more involved in the plot. All right, the next want and need from the usurper here, saying, I want Batman to use more of the gadgets on his utility belt, have more than one Batarang, and use his ninja stealth skills more often. I know we got little snippets of this in the first one, but I want a full Predator sequence, like something straight out of the Arkham games or the intro to episode 1 of the Telltale games. Abso-freaking-lutely. I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. I mean, I really like what the Batman Part 1 did, but I think one thing people absolutely need for Part 2 is a bit more action, and the way they kind of approach certain aspects of action from Batman. A lot of comic book movies these days, and a lot of our brains these days, need to be entertained by action, spectacle, and if it doesn't really tackle that so much, right, sometimes, and I'm not saying you or you watching right now, but a lot of people will say, oh, it's slow, it's boring, unless you have that, you know, dopamine hit of explosion, this, that, and the other. So I would be happy if it wasn't likened to that of other typical formulaic superhero movies, in where all I'm trying to say is it doesn't have, still in Part 2, loads and loads of action. But what I would appreciate is a teeny bit more, right? A teeny bit more, because when those moments come, it feels like you wanted it so much, and when they slap, they slap. Like even the Batmobile car chase, obviously at the beginning of the movie, you had the train fight scene. In the Penguin Iceberg Lounge, you had a brief thing where he used his grapple hook against the twins. And then obviously at the end of the movie, you have that crazy moment where the score comes in. Like, those moments, I feel like, weigh so much more heavily because they're few and far between. But what I mean by the more subtle stuff, it would be cool if, whether he is even doing recon, for example, when he was doing recon on the Penguin, he was looking at the drops being made, Penguin came out, and then it turned into the Batmobile chase scene. I think what would have been really cool, and I wouldn't really want that scene to change, but let's just mirror that for the second movie. If in that scene, or a scene like that, he was going down and snatching people up and then launching back up with a grapple hook kind of thing. Or yeah, he did use a Batarang. That is another thing. We don't have Batarangs. They technically exist in some way or another. One of the promo arts include him using it, but it might have been his knife from his chest. But we do have, from the concept art book, literal Batarangs, like Mark II or Mark V or whatever it was. But either way, we haven't seen them. If he could use them as even a distraction technique to make the criminal look the other way, even something like that would be remarkable. Do you know what I mean? I've already said, from the Bat in the Rafters scene at the end of the film where he uses a bomb on the smoke pipe, I think that will just give him the idea of, hey, if I could get smoke pellets or something like that, that would be very good for deception and theatricality, if you will. I do expect this to be evolved in the second movie, along with maybe a slightly evolved suit, of course. People want and need this stuff, and with a more developed Batman in Part 2, you do expect more developed things from that of the original movie. It going bigger, better, harder, faster, freaking stronger. Do you know what I mean? In every avenue of Batman. Now, another need related to this, if you will, from BrookeBeth4555, saying, I want to see a more polished Batman, new Batsuit, better Batmobile, more Batcave. So, what I will say here is I do expect a slightly upgraded suit, more like an evolution. So I think the shapes, like the cowl shape, maybe the material could change, but the overall look, I think, will be maintained. Kind of like Batman Telltale. There were differences, but the overall look, you can tell, is just like built upon. It's just upgraded. It's not like, you know, the difference between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. I feel like if they did that with what Nolan did from the first movie to the second movie, but with Robert Pattinson's Batsuit, I feel like that would be a shame to throw away what they built upon to be, of my opinion, the best looking Batsuit. And yes, I know, I'm a huge fan of the Dark Knight Returns look of Ben Affleck's, but yeah, this Batsuit is the best. Like, I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. But different strokes for different folks. But now for a better Batmobile. What do you mean a better Batmobile? I love this Batmobile, but no, really, I do get it. Again, different strokes for different folks. So a better Batmobile, I don't know what that means. I guess it means different things for different people. For some people, that would mean going from the muscle car to something maybe not like tanky like Nolan's, but maybe a mix between, you know, the Arkham Knight video game and I guess Ben Affleck's Batmobile. I don't think we're going to get that kind of upgrade, if you will, and to me it wouldn't even be an upgrade because the flavor of Pattinson's Bruce isn't so much going for Affleck's kind of high-tech, kind of, you know, aesthetically pleasing, you know, with lots of different shapes and corners to it, with the aerodynamics just making it look like a freaking rocket car. I love those Batmobiles, don't get me wrong, but I think this is very well intended and designed for what this version is of Batman. Now, a better Batmobile could also mean for some people, hey, kind of keep the looks, but maybe we're going to get some more gadgets. I think that would be the best way to do it. The way I look at Matt Reeves' approach to Batman and Batsuit gadgets to that of the Batmobile is kind of James Bond-esque in where I think designs will mostly look the same. Now, the Batmobile, I think it will kind of look the same. However, I would expect gadget changes or gadget implementations. And maybe in a tribute to even that of the old classic Adam West Batman. I mean, we already know that the cowl is reminiscent of Adam West's Batman, but you know how back in those days you might get like a... okay, so I'm not talking about shark repellent here, but maybe there's some spikes that get dropped from the Batmobile or gadgets like that where Bruce presses a button after, you know, Alfred says a line and Pattinson's Bruce is like, well, I've added new upgrades. Okay, that's a bit cheesy, but you get my point. He presses a button and something else happened. Maybe there's an extra turbo boost. Maybe there's some kind of thing that happens or gets deployed like a grapple hook. Get my point. I think that would be the neat way of doing it in Reeves' universe, and where Bruce has made these upgrades himself. This isn't like Wayne Enterprises, like technological Batmobile upgrade where, okay, there's a new targeting system and technology and so on. No, he's literally, you know, got the mechanism to actually allow this propelled hook that goes out of the Batmobile. Like, he's fitted it under the hood of the car himself. I think that would be sick. I think what I love about this Batman is everything feels very handmade. Now, I'm not opposed to, by the way, him utilizing more tech from Wayne Enterprises and it going a bit more technological in future installments. But I guess I already just believe in my head that Bruce gets all of these materials through Wayne Enterprises anyway. It's just he fits it himself. As for more Batcave, absolutely. There's so many areas to that Batcave that I think can be utilized more. I mean, we normally just go to that main station where the Bat computer is, but I know other stations have other screens. They have certain areas where the Batmobile is being used. Gadgets are being developed. There's ballistics tests of which even Batarangs are being tested out on and where they can actually pierce sheets of metal. So I think that's fascinating, and maybe even a montage of seeing Bruce work on things that we're even talking about right now. Maybe there's like more of a chemistry laboratory station where he's actually testing, I don't know, let's just say the second movie had fear toxin in it. He's testing out the compounds and isolating certain elements. I really don't know, but I completely agree. So I would say more Batcave is kind of a need from me here. Better Batmobile, I would say that's definitely a want. I think these things are low-key expected. Same with the Batsuit. I wouldn't say it's like a need, though, because I am so in love with the designs, but I wouldn't deny expecting upgrades here of some kind. But let me know if you think these are needs for you all the way around. So next top one, a need here from Ryan EAU1010 saying, I want to see how Matt Reeves will unwind the fantastical side of characters like Mr. Freeze, for example. Keep up your work, man. We love those Batman 2 videos. Thank you, man. I would say that this is a top one for me as well. I know this one is going to be somewhat split amongst you guys, but again, Mr. Freeze was used as an example here. It's not necessarily like what we're going to say from here on out has to be unwound. But yes, I will say that as much as some people will disagree with this, and what I mean by that is some of you might say, no, these fantastical characters are no longer the said character if they are unwound and grounded, if you will, in a way that doesn't fully portray their fantastical aspects. See, I somewhat disagree with that, and believe it or not, so does Matt Reeves. He even said himself in that quote, that's such a great story, right? I think there's actually a grounded version of that story, which could be really powerful and really great. So he genuinely thinks that he could explore that, theoretically or hypothetically speaking, in his universe. There is a grounded version that could be explored there. So I get what people are saying. I really do. You feel like that character would just, it's almost like a disservice adapting them in this way, unless they are the way they are in the source material. But this would be like almost a need from me in the sense that I would love to see the challenge of Matt Reeves adapting a traditionally fantastical Batman Rogues Gallery character in his grounded universe. I think there would be a bit of uproar about it initially, but I think people would be like, oh damn, so okay, so this isn't like mega fantastical, but like, I'm not gonna lie, in this lens and in this universe, this was a pretty cool adaptation. Now, I do totally get how people say, like, nah, makes sense with the Riddler. You know, there's not really anything fantastical that you need to adapt. You could argue that for Scarface and the Ventriloquist, you don't have to go, you know, any somewhat supernatural aspect there, because there's versions of that, obviously, with Scarface. You could just make him a very disturbed individual with his dummy. There's other villains with, of course, Mad Hatter. You could argue the hypnosis and whatnot of that could be grounded. But Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, other characters, Clayface, absolutely not. But I'm telling you, I think it can be done, as Matt Reeves thinks it can, and I would be so fascinated to see him prove everyone wrong with how it would still be worthwhile unwinding that in the ways that Matt Reeves has explained. I think it would be so cool, but I understand that this might not be a want from everyone, and they'll be like, nope, nope, nope. The next want from the Batman Part 2, Dude5636 says, I would love to see this Batman in the snow, even if they don't use Mr. Freeze. Just thinking about Batman patrolling while it's snowing would look great, especially with the cinematography done right, like the first one. My God, I think this is one we can all agree with unanimously. The Batman Part 2, winter, and incorporate. I think, by the way, let me put this out there. I think it will be winter regardless. Like winter, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am. It usually ends at the end of March, right? The first movie ends after a week in November. The Penguin picks up right away as of the end of the Batman Part 1, right? We don't know the duration of that series, but I doubt it's going to go all the way past beyond March. So I think it's quite likely that the Batman Part 2 will pick up pretty sharply after the events of the Penguin series. And that means if I was a betting man, I'd be willing to bet that we would still be in winter. Even if it takes place a few months later, in January, February, you would still be in the likelihood of snow, winter, right? And where Gotham could very well be snowy. I think that would be remarkable. I think I would die to see Matt Reeves's Gotham with Greg Fraser's cinematography with just snow. Even if Mr. Freeze wasn't there, that would be so cool. I believe Jackson, this amazing artist, has got some cool concept arts out there that I'm probably showing on screen that would just give you the vision of Pattinson's Batman, Reeves' Gotham with the winter, with snow. So fingers crossed, because I've already explained how I think it's likely, but we're going to have to wait and see. But this is an absolute need for the Batman Part 2. If I don't get it, it is what it is. But yeah, if we do get it, oh man. Next top one is from Batman vs. Twilight, saying, I would love to have some scenes of Joker setting up his plot for the third installment. Not a lot, maybe 15 minutes total, but while Batman is taking on whoever the big bad is, Joker is moving behind the scenes. I would say, and again, I've chosen ones where I feel like there might be a lot of people who want / even need these things, but there's a few where I feel like this, and where people will be like, nope, I've already voiced it. Don't care about the Joker. Joker fatigue. Joker fatigue. I disagree. I really do. You don't have to have Joker in your face in the second movie, just like Batman vs. Twilight is saying here. I would love, this is definitely a want from me. Borderline a need. I wouldn't say it's need per se, but I think we need an update, just similar to the first movie, in the sense that imagine if the first movie did have the deleted Arkham prisoner scene, unseen Arkham prisoner scene included in the runtime. It would have given us a few more minutes. I expect the second movie to have something like that, to somewhat say, without giving too much of a heavy focus on this plot, because you don't want to subtract from everything else going on, which is crucial. Just cooking along this subplot to show that that is still continuing on, and maybe even, yeah, the end of the movie could end in the Arkham breakout, basically setting up the third film. The reason why I'm so against the idea of this Joker fatigue is because if you did truly see the Joker in the Batman universe, it would be in the third film, which by the time you first ever saw him, and you still wouldn't see him properly in the second movie in terms of like full-on screen time, it would have been the Batman releasing in 2022, and Part 3 might not release until near 2030. You can't tell me that there was so much Joker when the first time you proper see him in action is only in the Batman Part 3. Do you know what I mean? So, of course, yeah, like, cook along Joker in the second movie. And by, again, the Batman Part 3, it would have been a plot years and 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 years in the making. If you think about it, that finally came to fruition. The way I look at it is Joker is an Elseworlds thing, like Todd Phillips' movies. The Dark Knight was a long ass time ago, and if Barry Keoghan's Joker got set up in Part 3, yes, he could play more of an on-screen role and a big role, but he could be in league with other villains. I don't think we should just assume that it's going to be a rehash of everything we've seen before. So I am absolutely down for this. Very, very down, and I would want to see more scenes of Joker in Part 2, and I almost low-key expect it, especially with the Arkham show now being pitched as a DCU thing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to end it there. There were a lot of other top wants and needs for the Batman Part 2, but I feel like I've rambled about quite a few of them. Let me know if you want to see even more top wants and needs, because as I said, certainly a lot more that we could get into. You might even say that, hey, my top one wasn't even mentioned. Well, let me know what they were down in the comments below, and we could tackle that in the future. Do me a favor and check out the link in the description for the sponsor of this video, Fan Homes Build the Batmobile series. I really do think many of you would enjoy that, so check it out. It really supports the channel. Other than that, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Leave a like on it to let YouTube know that you actually like these videos, and it might help me out in terms of the algorithm. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, Bat Family, in the next video. Goodbye.